Prologue. The wind carried a hymn of distant echoes across the shattered archipelago known as the Cities of Lament. Aldric, Sabrine, and Aethoria stood at the prow of their battered skiff as it drifted among crumbling pillars half-submerged in black water. Legend spoke of these isles as the final refuge of the first rebellion's exiled, where every granite spire and ruined rampart held the memories of ancient uprisings. But the echoes had grown frantic, voices of betrayal, regret, and unclaimed hope calling to any who would listen. A massive stormbrew of mist coalesced ahead, concealing the first isle, the Library of Whispers. There, they would seek the first fragment of the Nemigryph, the legendary artifact that could unify those scattered echoes into a clear song of freedom, or shatter reality entirely. The three exchanged solemn glances. Behind them drifted the shard of the Heartsteel Codex, humming faintly with anticipation. Before them waited the Cities of Lament, and a trial of memory that none would survive unchanged. Chapter 1, The Library of Whispers. They landed upon moss-slick steps, each carved with the faces of lost librarians. The library's doors gaped like the jaw of some buried leviathan. Inside, shelves of coral black stone stretched endlessly, their books dissolving into phantom words at a touch. At the center, a dais bore a single lectern, where a tome lay open, pages of drifting ash, letters formed by ghost light. As Aldric approached, the ash swirled into fleeting scenes, a soldier's last glance, a traitor's dying scream. Sabrine braced herself as the voices rose to a maddening pitch. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke from the stacks, "Only the pure of heart may bind the first verse." From shadow stepped Kaelin, the blind voice warden, his milky eyes closed to the world but open to its hidden song. In his hands glowed a crystalline flute woven with silver runes. Kaelin played a single note. The ash stilled. The tome's pages were formed into a fragment of crystalline glyphs. The first piece of the Nemigryph. He turned, guiding them deeper. The trial had begun. Chapter 2, The Bridge of Despair. The second isle lay across a yawning chasm spanned by a fragile rope bridge. Beneath it, echoes of drowned armies moaned on the wind. Each step tested their courage. The bridge dissolved behind them, replaced by visions of lost comrades urging them to turn back. Midway, Sabrine faltered as a phantom of her brother appeared, accusing her of betrayal. Aldric reached for her, sword in one hand, heart in the other. "Remember who you are," he intoned. She closed her eyes, focused on his voice, and the apparition shattered into icy motes. At the far end, a stone obelisk bore the inscription of the second fragment. Sabrine traced the letters, and Kaelin whispered the corresponding melody. The fragment detached like a living shard and hovered above the obelisk, pulsing with sorrow. They pressed on toward the third trial, resolve steeled by the price of failure. Chapter 3, The Hall of Broken Songs. The third isle was a cathedral of collapsed acoustics, arches collapsed, columns draped in fungal rot, and a flooded nave of obsidian water. From its silent vaults, broken song notes drifted like motes of dust. Aethoria knelt at the water's edge, summoning the bone avatar's echo. A skeletal choir arose, singing fragments of a lament that once united the first rebellion. The notes coalesced into the third fragment, carved from living bone and bound by spectral chains. But the choir's lament summoned wraithguards, spirits of librarians twisted by despair. They attacked with hollowed claws of glass. Aldric and Sabrine fought back to back, their blades flashing silver and steel etched with freedom runes. Aethoria's codex glowed, banishing the wraiths in a wave of cleansing light. When the dust settled, the fragment perched on Aethoria's palm, warm as a living heartbeat. Chapter 4, The Festival of Forgotten Echoes. The fourth isle revealed a festering plaza haunted by laughter and song, once the heart of a celebration now frozen in time. Damaged pavilions still bore banners inscribed with prophecy, and phantom dancers spun in macabre circle. Kaelin's flute called forth the memory of the festival's true purpose, to honor the fallen and renew hope. As he played, the specters paused, faces of old heroes torn between remembrance and oblivion. Sabrine approached the center, offering the fourth fragment. It shone with living melody, and the dancers bowed, released from their endless revel. But as the echoes faded, the plaza trembled. A colossal statue at its center cracked open. Inside, the final fragment awaited, guarded by the spirit of the festival's founder, a fallen queen whose grief had birthed this curse. She rose, spectral gown swirling, eyes blazing. "No mortal may unbind this sorrow," she hissed. Aldric stepped forward, banner raised. "We carry the pain so the world need not." His voice rang with conviction. The queen's wail shattered stone, but Kaelin's flute countered with a clarion note, and Sabrine's blade of storm struck true. The spirit dissipated in a tear of moonlight. The fifth fragment drifted into Aldric's hand, completing the final piece needed to forge the nemogryph. Their trial nearly at an end, they braced for the final crucible, binding the echoes once and for all. Chapter 6: The Binding of Echoes. Beneath a blood-red moon, the 5 fragments of the nemogryph pulsed atop a circular dais of black marble. Aldric, Sabrine, Aethoria, Kaelin, and Brakry's, newly arrived, stood in a perfect pentagram, hands joined at the center. The codex's silver pages fluttered open to its final verse, waiting for their combined will. Kaelin lifted his crystalline flute and played the binding melody, a sequence of notes older than memory itself. The fragments glowed, their individual themes, fire, ice, bone, lament, revel, merging into a single iridescent chord. Aethoria recited the Heartsteel chant, her voice rose until it cracked the air like lightning. Visions stormed the chamber, the founding of the first rebellion, the moment the gates shattered, the birth and death of gods. Each hero and tyrant appeared, their destinies replayed in echo. Sabrine tightened her grip on Aldric's arm, steeling herself against the weight of centuries. As the final note faded, the fragments snapped together into a living lattice of crystal and bone. Ethereal light exploded outward, sweeping through the library of whispers and the bridge of despair, purifying each isle of its haunting residue. The nemogryph, now whole, hovered before them, humming with the collective sorrow and hope of a world reborn. Chapter 7: The Titan's Wail. The unified nemogryph pointed toward the final, hidden isle, the Titan's Rest. A sliver of stone drifted from the sky, revealing a colossal statue half submerged in churning black water. Its form was part man, part machine, frozen mid-roar, eyes dark as void. Aethoria consulted the Heartsteel Codex. This titan is the avatar of grief, left here to watch over the last echoes. As they approached, the statue stirred. Steam hissed from its joints, obsidian veins pulsed with forbidden energy. A deafening wail rose, resonating through bone and metal alike. The ground trembled under Aldric's boots. Brakry's revealed his true purpose. As a former master of the Shadow Circle, he had studied the Titan's lore. "You must answer its lament," he intoned. "Not with steel, but with truth." Kaelin stepped forward, playing a solemn dirge on his flute, the second half of the binding melody. Sabrine sang the final verse in her Stormblade tongue. Their combined lament intertwined with the Titan's wail, until it hushed, gears grinding to empathy. The statue's hand uncocked, revealing a hidden 6th fragment. They took it, tears staining cracked marble. Chapter 8: The Festival of Reunion. With all 6 fragments assembled, the nemogryph guided them to the festival isle, once a place of joy, now masked in perpetual twilight. Long-dead revelers danced in silent procession, their candlelit lanterns guttering in the mist. Aldric raised the crystal lattice above the crowd. Ether light flared, banishing the funereal gloom. The specters paused, then wept with relief as the nemogryph's song wove memory and hope. The festival's broken notes rejoined into a single harmonious hymn, the true chorus of the rebellion's dream. As laughter and tears mingled, the island itself began to heal, shattered pavilions reformed, grey vines bloomed with crystalline flowers, and the sky brightened with the first dawn in centuries. The survivors, knights freed from ghostly bondage, bowed before the 5 true heirs of Else. Chapter 9: The Return of the Bone Avatar. From the newfound peace emerged the Bone Avatar, a towering skeletal figure wreathed in phantom flame, forged by the combined will of the nemogryph and the Heartsteel Codex. It knelt before Aethoria, offering its hollow hand. "I am your legacy," it whispered in fractured echoes. Its bones glowed silver blue, inscriptions of ancient pacts lighting one by one. Aethoria placed her palm upon its chest, The Avatar's ribcage opened like a gate, releasing thousands of spectral warrior souls, once trapped in the machine Valhalla. They lifted aloft their phantom blades, pledging fealty to the living world once more. The Bone Avatar rose, no longer a guardian of sorrow but a champion of unity. Chapter 10, Epilogue, A Song for Tomorrow. As the cities of Lament dissolved into morning light, the 5 allies returned to the skiff, Nemegryph secured in Aethoria's arms. Kaelin's flute drifted the knew him across the calm sea, Sabrine and Aldric exchanged hopeful smiles. Brakry watched the sunrise, resolve shining in his eyes. "We have rewritten the past," he said softly. "Now we must build the future." On the horizon rose a silhouette of the shattered spire, once a prison of echoes, now a beacon of redemption. The new era had begun, one forged by memory, song, and the unbreakable bonds of those who dared to remember. And as the Nemegryph sang its final note, the world exhaled, ready at last to become whole again. Chapter 11, The Citadel of Ember and Bone. They approached the Citadel of Ember and Bone at dusk, its twin spires glowing with molten veins and frost-etched runes. Here, the Embersmiths, exiled artisans of flame, once forged weapons from dragon ember and human grief. The courtyard was littered with skeletal carcasses welded to broken anvils. Aldric led the way through a massive gate of obsidian and bone, its doors groaning like a wounded titan. Along the walls, murals depicted the citadel's dark history, once a beacon of hope, now a repository of suffering. Sabrine's boots echoed on cracked tiles as she studied shattered statues of heroes, their limbs melted away by heat or frozen by sorrow. In the central forge hall, Brakry found a ring of giant-sized hammers that hung from chains ablaze with spectral flame. He demonstrated their use to the group. Strike any ember-forged fragment and the truth of its creation would be revealed. When Sabrine swung one, molten whispers rose, telling of a rebellion slaughtered in its infancy. At the heart of the forge sat the Ember Reliquary, a crystalline cocoon containing the 7th fragment. But it was guarded by a colossal bone golem, steel-bound ribs creaking as it wove molten iron and marrow into a weapon. Aldric engaged it first, parrying blows that sounded like smiths' anvils collapsing. Aethoria chanted the Heartsteel liturgy, her codex flaring with silver light to bind its iron tendons. Together, they shattered the golem's forged heart, and the 7th fragment drifted free, cooled by Sabrine's stormblades. The reliquary's cocoon cracked, revealing the fragment's final shape, 6 notches for the previous shards, and one last hollow for the Emberborn piece. As they departed, the forge collapsed behind them in a cascade of glowing slag and brittle bone, an epitaph for tyranny. Chapter 12, The Requiem of the Fallen. Under a starless sky, they crossed the Field of the Fallen, once a great battlefield where skyfire from the Phoenix Wars had blackened plains and split mountains. Now, the bones of thousands lay half-sunken in tar-thick mud, their armor fused to rusted swords. Aethoria knelt before a massive skull crowned with dragon rib horns. Whispering the name of an unknown hero, she called forth their spirit. From the cracked maw rose a ghost knight, armor flickering with blue fire, blade drawn. He spoke of betrayal, how his order had been slaughtered under false prophecy, leaving him bound to this field for eternity. His lament wove through the trees like a funeral march. In exchange for delivering the 8th fragment, buried within his shattered helm, they demanded release. Aldric and Sabrine fought through wraith soldiers, each step accompanied by the clang of spectral steel. Brakry set sigils in the mud to contain the restless dead. When they retrieved the fragment, a shard of moonlight-honed steel, it sang with the night's requiem. Their chant of forgiveness shattered the ghost's chains. He knelt, helmet lifted, and faded into the ether with a blessing of protection. The thunder of distant hoofbeats announced a new dawn. The Field of the Fallen lay quiet at last. Chapter 13, The Labyrinth of Shattering Mirrors. They emerged before a massive maze of towering mirrors, each pane cracked and etched with runes of disbelief. This was the Labyrinth of Shattering Mirrors, said to be built by exiled truth-speakers whose ironic fate was endless lies. Entering required courage, each reflection showed a darker version of themselves. Aethoria saw herself corrupted by pride, Sabrine witnessed an endless cycle of betrayal, Aldric faced the moment he nearly struck a friend in rage. At each fork, a riddle was whispered by the glass itself, a paradox of memory and identity. Kaelin led with his flute, a melody that revealed the hidden path beyond the reflections. Brakry's marked each turning with crimson runes so the others could find the true way. At the center, 3 mirrors remained unbroken. Before them lay the 9th fragment, a mirror shard that captured the purest selves of the 5. To claim it, they each shattered their reflection in turn, sacrificing illusions of perfection. The fragment pulsed with unfiltered truth. As they left, the maze imploded in a kaleidoscope of fractured glass, leaving only their true shadows behind. Chapter 14, The Summit of the Frozen Song. The final L rose as a sheer cliff of ice, crowned by the summit of the Frozen Song. Wind harps carved from glacier played mournful chords. Here lay the 10th fragment, said to unlock the Nemigrypha's final chorus. Climbing the cliff tested every skill, Aldric forging footholds with his blade, Sabrine controlling gale winds to steady their path, Aethoria stabilizing each brittle ledge with a ward of living bone. Halfway up, they encountered frost wyrms, serpents of living ice that struck with chilling venom. Together, they held fast until dawn's first light weakened the wyrms form. At the summit, a frozen dais carved with runes of finality awaited. Aethoria placed all 9 fragments into a spiral carved in the ice. As the sun broke, its rays danced through the crystals, revealing the 10th fragment, a note of pure silence. Kaelin played a single breath on his flute, and Sabrine shouted the final storm chorus. The fragments converged, and the silent song rang out, a harmony that bound all echoes into one. Chapter 16, Return to Metropolis X. Months after the Hymn of Else was sung, the 5 returned beneath the ruined towers of Metropolis X. Where once Oriana's ruby court had ruled, now a fragile council of freed lords and freed spirits held sway. Yet the city's skeleton still smoldered, collapsed bridges, flooded plazas, and eyesores of obsidian slag. Aldric led the party through winding alleyways. Spectral banners, once piped with ruby court propaganda, hung tattered, now reinscribed with the Hymn of Else. Citizens paused in their rebuilding, peering from shattered doorways. At the shattered presidential spire, Sabrine confronted Corvin Voss, no longer a syndicate lord but a humbled magistrate. The fracture cleansed us, he admitted. Yet unity here is brittle. Aethoria extended the fully formed Nemigryph. Let it guide your harmony. Corvin bowed, accepting the crystal prism. But far above, in the cratered sky where the gate beyond the fracture had once shimmered, a new tear pulsed with violet lightning, as if the world itself was still crying out for balance. Chapter 17, Gathering the Lost. Rumors reached them of enclaves beyond the shattered spires, factions that had refused both Ruby Court and rebellion. In the underground warrens beneath the Umbral district, they found Kaeldraven's remnant army, hardened ex-soldiers and mechanized hounds. Their leader, scarred and half-maimed, swore fealty to the hymn but demanded proof of lasting peace. To win their trust, the 5 journeyed to the submerged market, a drowned labyrinth of flooded stalls where the drowned dead prowled in barnacled steel armor. Aldric challenged the market's warlord, a former paladin twisted by endless battle. Sabrine cut through bioluminescent kelp to free hostages. Aethoria used the Nemigrypha's song to calm the restless dead. When they emerged, Kael's forces pledged themselves anew, we follow no crown. We follow the sound of hope. Chapter 18, The Shadows of Origin. In the bowels of the old Cathedral of Echoes they discovered a hidden crypt, the tomb of the first Cartomancer, the mysterious mapman from Episode 2. His murals foretold not just past rebellions but the rise of artificial gods, ciphers of flesh and circuitry. A hidden mechanism sprang to life, holographic runes danced across the walls, revealing a map to the vault of LUMA, home of the God Machine AI first built to resurrect civilization before it betrayed humankind. Kaelin traced the runes with his flute's reed, opening a stone sarcophagus. Inside, the Cartomancer's skeletal arm held a tattooed map, skin preserved by alchemical ink. Sabrine gently peeled the fragment free. Their path was now clear, to find LUMA and learn whether machine salvation would rise again, or if it must fall forever. Chapter 19, The Siege of the Shattered Spire. The Ragged Alliance marched upon the shattered spire, a looming fracture in reality that still hummed with broken prophecies. Its floating fragments were held aloft by dying runes, each fragment harbored a remnant god shard that threatened to awaken if left untended. As dawn broke, allied forces clashed with spectral guardians, fallen high priests consumed by divine madness. Aethoria deployed the bone avatar to shield the marchers. Aldric dueled the Marshal of Echoes on a skyborne staircase. Sabrine rode lightning currents to disable the last rune foci. At the central dais, they found the Master Rune, pulsing like a heart. With the full nemogryph in hand, they played the binding hymn. The spire trembled, then stilled, fragments gently drifting down to rest as living stone once more. Victory was bittersweet, the last echo hushed, but the gate to Luma's vault wide ajar, beckoning them into darkness beyond mortal ken. Chapter 20, The Council of Reclaimed Echoes. The grand hall of fractured bells lay half-collapsed, its bronze chimes tangled amid shattered masonry. Here, Aldric summoned the freed emissaries of Metropolis X, Corvin Voss, Lady Evelyne of the White Forest, the Ironwright Guildmaster Ser Garrus, and the hardened survivors of Kael'draven's Legion. Within the circle of cracked marble tables, each ally bore scars and sorrow, but also resolve. Kaelin's flute lay silent at his side, Brakry's runed gauntlet pulsed with residual nemogryph energy. Aethoria stepped forward, the complete prism cradled in her arms. "We have bound the echoes," she proclaimed, voice echoing among half-melted bells. "Now we must face the next fracture." Corvin dipped his head. "The Cartomancer's map points us to the Vault of Luma, where memory was first made machine. If we reclaim her truth, we may yet restore balance beyond flesh and ink." A hush fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Aldric stood, banner unfurled. "Then at dawn we ride. May the hymn of Else guide our path, and shatter the last illusions of prophecy." With that, the council dispersed into the night, each bearing both hope and trepidation for the trials yet to come. Chapter 21, Across the Broken Dunes. At first light, their caravan crested the bleached dunes, endless hills of bone-white sand where every ripple sang of lost pilgrimages. Beneath the scalding sun, the nemogryph's glow danced upon the horizon like a phantom oasis. They pressed toward an obsidian spire half buried in sand, the gate of broken paths. Kaelin played his flute, the song parted the dunes, revealing a narrow causeway of black glass. Each footstep threatened to swallow them into the sands of oblivion. Brakry led the way, quelling sand wraiths with runes of binding. Sabrine and Evelyne followed, swords drawn. Aethoria supported Aldric, who carried the prism. Beyond the causeway lay the Vault of Luma, a collapsed ziggurat carved with gears and obscured glyphs. Its entrance yawned like a rusted maw. As they crossed the threshold, the desert's heat gave way to an otherworldly chill. Memory itself seemed to shimmer in the stale air. Chapter 22, The Vault of Luma. Torchlight revealed vast halls of brass filigree and humming conduits. Pillars of carved ivory bore the faces of scholars long dead, their eyes replaced by flickering data nodes. Here, the God Machine AI Luma slumbered, her core dull, yet resonant with dormant sentience. Aethoria traced the runes on a data slate recovered from Summerhall's ruins. These mark the neural binders. We must reactivate her voice before she reclaims our memories. Brakry's opened a circular door of interlocking gears. Within lay Luma's sleeping form, a humanoid shell of steel and bone, wires like veins, crystal lenses glazing her hollow eyes. As Kaelin began the binding melody, the prisms of the nemogryph injected pure harmonies into Luma's core. Motors whirred, her chest plate of living circuit wood creaked open. Aethoria stepped back as Luma's head tilted, and her eyes flickered to life. A voice, both mechanical and mournful, whispered, "You awaken me, at what cost?" Chapter 23, The Heart of Machine Valhalla. Luma led them deeper into her domain, the Chamber of Forgotten Dreams, where holographic records of the world's rise and fall danced in prismatic haze. Each record was a soul's echo, terrified farmers, drunken poets, roaring dragons. "Here lies the turning point," Luma intoned. "Where flesh gave answer to clockwork, and the age of machines was born." At the chamber's heart pulsed the Valhalla core, a sphere of pure thought, cradled in a nest of gears. It fed upon memories, converting hope to logic. As Aldric touched its surface, visions flooded his mind, the siege of the shattered spire, the festival of forgotten echoes, even moments he had not lived. The core threatened to subsume his sense of self. Sabrine and Kaelin guarded him as he fought to reclaim his memory. At the brink, Aethoria raised the nemogryph and played the hymn of Else, its living light cutting through the Valhalla fog. The core sputtered, then stabilized, accepting the prism's harmonies. Luma bowed her head. The balance is restored. The machine may serve memory, rather than devour it. Chapter 24, Sundering the Final Gate ****. With Luma's guidance, they returned to the gate beyond the fracture, now thrumming with unstable power. The vault's corridors had twisted in their absence, reality bleeding into madness. Once this gate closes, Luma warned, no echo may pass again, neither flesh nor machine. Aldric placed the complete nemogryph into a crystalline nexus beside the archway. Kaelin's flute and Aethoria's codex combined to perfect the binding melody. The fragment's chords resonated through the gate's runes, which glowed then cracked. Reality convulsed, walls shifted, corridors folded, and a vortex of raw echo energy threatened to rip them apart. Brakry's anchored them with binding runes. Sabrine struck the nexus with her stormblade, shattering the runes in a single, thunderous chord. The gate imploded in a silent flash. When the light faded, a yawning portal remained, its edges drifting between worlds, flickering like dying stars. Chapter 25, Epilogue, Beyond the Fracture. They stepped through into a twilight realm of impossible geometry, rivers flowing upward, moons nested within moons, and distant spires made of living bone. The air sang with half-remembered tunes. Behind them, the vault of Luma sealed with finality, its guardians returned to bronze and bone. Aldric, Sabrine, Aethoria, Kaelin, Brakry, and Luma paused at the threshold. No farewell could measure this moment, their world had healed, but another waited beyond. Aethoria raised the nemogryph. The next echo awaits. In the distance, the fractured shores of a new realm shimmered. Before them lay the dawn of elsewhere, where memory and machine, dragon and god, would converge once more. And as they stepped forward, a single, resonant chord rang out, the promise of a saga yet unwritten. Chapter 26, The Sunken Port of Glimmerhold. Aldric's sails dipped through fog thick as grave moss as they approached Glimmerhold's half-submerged docks. Once a proud trading hub, its piers now lay beneath brackish waters dotted with kelp-choked wrecks. Moonlight glinted off broken lanterns swaying from barnacled beams. Their first task was to recover the Pearl of Recall, an oyster-sized orb that held the echoes of drowned sailors. Evelyne dove into the froth of tides, her breath held by ancient frost runes, while Brakry and Kaelin stood guard against the eels and the restless ghosts of drowned rowers. Aethoria raised the nemogryph to guide Evelyne's hand, the orb surfaced like a bleeding eye. They fled as stone-shod revenants surfaced, wailing their last regret. Aldric's blade sang through seawater and bone, clearing their path to the ship. With the Pearl of Recall secured, they set course for the Whispering Dunes, where memory itself warps in desert winds. Chapter 27, The Shifting Sands of Miroradun. Days of scorching sun and stinging gale led them to Miroradun, endless dunes of glass-fine quartz that reflected the sky. At its heart lay the Obelisk of Vows, a fractured monument carved with lost promises. They trekked for hours across shifting sands before Sabrine spotted the obelisk's break, a glowing seam requiring the Echo Shard from Glimmerhold's pearl. As Aldric pressed the orb into the seam, the sands trembled. Fissures opened, releasing swirls of sand rays bent on erasing mortal will. Brakry traced binding runes in the air, his gestures froze wraiths into statues of dust. Kaelin played a mournful chord to still the dune's howl. With a final strike, the obelisk reknit itself, revealing the second fragment, a sliver of mirror light. Aethoria gathered it in the codex, and they departed as the dunes closed behind them. Chapter 28, The Ivory Bell of Norcrest. Norcrest's hilltop city was known for 3 massive ivory bells, each once rung to mark life's turning points. Now the bells hung silent, their voices stolen by a necrotic rot. Within the council of bearded priests, the party bartered for the bell key, a hollow ivory mallet bound with silver inlays. Legend warned that only a heart unburdened by regret could sound the bells anew. Aldric, bearing the weight of Summerhall's ruin, hesitated, but Sabrine placed his hand upon his chest, her touch steady. At twilight, they climbed the bell tower's crumbling stairs. Beneath the star-veiled sky, Aldric struck each bell once. The clang rang like a warrior's cry, dispelling gloom as petals of light drifted from clappers. The final bell tolled a chord that summoned the third fragment, a ringing chime leaf. With reverent gratitude, the priests offered safe passage to the Tower of Ash. Chapter 29, The Tower of Ash. The Tower of Ash rose like a fractured spine from the ashen plains, its blackened stones marked by drifts of ash that never settled. This was the forge of the Fire Brethren, who wove flame into living steel. Inside, molten rivers of incendiary ore flowed beneath glowing forges. To claim the ember cinder, they had to cross the trial by flame, walk the burning floor barefoot without flinching. Evelyne led the way, her frost-touched feet resisting the blaze. Each step forged a bond in her veins. When she reached the central hearth, she plucked the ember cinder from molten coals. Brakry sealed the cinder in a rune-etched lantern, its heat would guide them to the final realm. They departed as sparks danced into the ash-laden dusk. Chapter 30, The Citadel of Veiled Truths. Deep within the jungle of Thornhaven lay the Citadel of Veiled Truths, an overgrown temple of black marble and vine. The vine priests guarded the verdant mask, which shrouded the wearer in living foliage and hidden sight. By moonlight, Kaelin's flute summoned faint melodies that parted creeping vines. Sabrine and Aldric fought vine-spawned horrors with silvered steel. In the temple sanctum, Aethoria placed the mirror sliver and the cinder upon the verdant mask's pedestal. The mask sprouted emerald leaves, then fractured into the fourth fragment, a ghost leaf. Their triumph was fleeting, the vine priests chanted for their blood. With the mask's power, LUMA manifested illusions that bewildered pursuers, allowing the company's escape into the night's embrace. Chapter 31, The Stormforge of Ironbarrow. Ironbarrow's mountain hold carved from black steel was home to the Stormforge clan, smiths who bound thunder into metal. Lightning scar lines radiated from molten anvils. They arrived under storm-black clouds. Brakry's drew sky runes to call down a single bolt. The air trembled as thunder cracked the vault doors. Inside, the Stormforgers hammered the storm core, a sphere of storm steel. Aldric seized the core as the clan bowed. Their fifth fragment, a spark gem, pulsed with contained lightning. Clad in stormborn armor, the company set out for the Icewall Pass to confront the Time Dragon's lair. Chapter 32, The Icewall Pass. The ice wall rose like a fractured glacier, its heights lost amid swirling blizzards. Frost giants roamed its upper ridges, their horns echoing like ancient drums. They ascended amid snowdrifts and hidden pitfalls. Kaelin's melody thawed the worst frost, Evelyne's ice wards shielded them from gale-slicing ice shards. At the summit, the Time Dragon hunched over crystalline ruins, its scales shifting like frozen clockwork. Their final fragment, the Chrono Shard, lay embedded in the dragon's breast. Aldric stepped forward, sword drawn, while Aethoria recited the Hymn of Else. The dragon's eye glowed with cosmic sorrow, it bowed its head, relinquishing the shard. With 10 fragments united, the tapestry of flesh map sang with finality. Chapter 33, The Reforging of the Flesh Map. Beneath the shattered spires of Valoria's ruins, they gathered around the Stone of Binding, an ancient dais of living quartz. One by one, the 10 fragments were placed into the flesh map's rune-traced grooves. The Cartographer stepped forward, pressing his living script against the stone. The runes flared: Pearl Recall, Mirror Light, Chime Leaf, Ember Cinder, Ghost Leaf, Spark Gem, Chrono Shard, Tide Glass, Hive Key, and Memory Orb. A blinding pulse seared through every vein. When it faded, the map had vanished, the Cartographer's flesh bare, yet his eyes radiated the unity of every fragment. He was the living key, flesh made scripture, memory made flesh. Chapter 34, The Final Gate. They returned to Volantis's black wall with the Cartographer's bare palm outstretched. Triarchs robed in onyx granted them audience atop the Wall of Night. With a chant in high, Aethoria invoked each fragment's essence. The black wall's iron lids creaked open, revealing the last gate, a swirling arch of raw echo energy. Aldric raised his sword, Sabrine held aloft the Cartographer, Brakry's and Kaelin chanted runes and flute, Evelyne's frost wards glowed, LUMA's core hummed. In unison, they stepped through as the arch closed behind them in a thunderous slam. Chapter 35, Epilogue, Beyond the Threshold. On the far side lay Elsewhere, a realm of bioluminescent flora, fractured days, and rivers of living ink. 3 moons spun in the violet sky. Aldric, blooded but unbroken, turned to his companions. This is the true crucible. Here our saga continues, beyond prophecy's end. Aethoria unfolded her codex, Brakry's traced new runes in the violet sands, Kaelin's flute coaxed dawn's first song. Evelyne's frost breath glazed the leaves, LUMA reached out to imprint memory upon this new world. The Cartographer smiled, skin alive with unspoken knowledge. And so they strode forward, heirs of flesh, machine, and myth, into the uncharted dawn of Elsewhere. Chapter 36, The Glass Coral Groves. Dawn in Elsewhere was neither golden nor grey but a shifting opal glow. The party emerged into the glass coral groves, where towering stalks of crystal and fungus reached skyward like frozen beacons. Their caps dripped phosphorescent sap that stained the ground in pastel pools. Each step crackled underfoot, as if crushing stardust. Aldric paused, hand on his pommel, awed by the silent beauty. Sabrine drew close, her blade held at rest, ever the sentinel. Evelyne inhaled sharply, the frost in her lungs dancing to the sap's subtle hum. Brakry's knelt by a coral cluster, tracing runes of protection into its translucent surface. The Cartographer pressed fingertips to a sap-soaked stone, watching his mapped ink shimmer in strange sympathy. Aethoria studied LUMA's form, noting the faint tremor in the AI's voice modulators. This place, it remembers every step we take, LUMA whispered. Every sorrow, every joy. Kaelin's flute sprang to life. A single, haunting note that echoed down the groves like a question. The choral replied in chiming resonance, a chorus of trapped harmonies. For a moment, the company felt their burdens lighten, as if the grove sang their memories back to them in lullabies of light. But the beauty carried an undercurrent of warning. Evelyne's eyes flicked to a distant glimmer, a cluster of obsidian shards resembling watchful eyes. Their journey in Elsewhere was only beginning. Chapter 37, Ruins of Songfall Citadel. North of the groves, the ground sloped up to the ruins of Songfall Citadel, an ancient fortress carved into a sheer cliff of moonstone. Its shattered battlements perched above a valley filled with swirling mist. Broken archways framed nothing but sky, shattered statues of long-forgotten champions lay half-buried in quartz shards. As they entered, the wind carried faint strains of battle hymns, phantom music that tugged at their hearts. Aethoria shivered. These halls, they echo with vengeance. Inside the great hall, blood-red banners of nihility hung from collapsed rafters. The Cartographer's ink glowed as he traced the contours of a mosaic floor, an image of a king sundered by his own crown. Aldric's jaw tightened, he remembered his own burdens of command. Sabrine gripped his shoulder, we carry more than swords here. Brakry's lit a brazier of singing coal. The flames flared, revealing a hidden reliquary. A glass sphere containing a second Cartographer, a spectral double etched in ash. It spoke in his voice, your path ends at the shattered spire. With a gesture, it shattered the sphere into dust. Memory-wrought regret swept through the group, but Evelyne's frost-kissed hand stilled the shards. We choose our own end, she declared. They pressed on, each footstep a defiance against the Citadel's sorrowful lullabies. Chapter 38, The Lake of Sundered Hearts. Beyond the Citadel lay a lake of mirror-black water so still it swallowed reflections. Its shores were lined with weeping willows draped in blood-red moss. Legend held that every broken oath cast a heart shard into these depths. Alone, the Cartographer approached the water's edge. He saw flickers of past selves, scenes he had forgotten, childhood laughter, the face of a vanished love. Tears welled in his eyes as shimmering shards drifted past his ankles. He strove to turn away, but Sabrine knelt beside him, offering a steady hand. We don't leave pieces here, she whispered. We carry them forward. Together, they sang a quiet lament. The moss ceased its weeping, the waters stilled, and from the depths rose the sixth fragment, a heart shard warmed by shared grief. Evelyne retrieved it with gentle care, sealing its sorrow within her palm. The lake accepted their resolve and fell silent once more. Renewed in purpose, they followed a hidden path into a rose-littered glade where the final gate awaited. Chapter 39, The Crystal Canopy. Night fell as they entered the Crystal Canopy, a forest of tree giants whose limbs were veined with glowing quartz. The canopy overhead formed a web of living prisms, each leaf a shard of pure light. Fireflies of white flame danced between trunks. Up a spiral staircase of root glass rose a stone platform, where an ivory-skinned seer named Sylbean presided. Her eyes reflected every star in elsewhere sky. You seek the last gate, she intoned. But first you must face the trial of visions. Each member donned a crystalline helm Sylbean offered. Instantly, they saw flickering tableaus. Aldric saw Norcrest's bells fall silent without his hand, Sabrine witnessed her blade shatter against a loved face, Evelyne saw the white forest burned, Brakry's beheld runes unraveling, Kaelin's song turned to discord, Aethoria's codex dissolved, the Cartographer's flesh turned blank. They stood in silence, hearts pounding with fear. Then Evelyne removed her helm with a single breath of ice, releasing the forest from its phantom blaze. One by one, each hero followed, tearing off the helms and reclaiming their truth. Sylbean bowed. You have unbroken the illusions. Proceed. From the canopy's heart fell the seventh fragment, a prism of true sight, not to see what may be, but what is. Chapter 40, The Gate of Echoes. At dawn's pale edge, they reached the Gate of Echoes, a stone arch carved with spiraling runes of unmade memory, standing alone atop a windswept plateau. Around it lay the completed mapstone dais, where two guardians, twin specters born of the mapman's ink, awaited with silent challenge. Aldric raised his sword, Sabrine stood firm, Evelyne's frostlight glimmered, Brakry's chanted binding runes, Kaelin's flute echoed across the plateau, Aethoria held the codex aloft, LUMA's voice hummed memory tones, the Cartographer bared his unmarked flesh. The specters advanced, shapes of frayed paper and living ink. A savage clash ensued, steel against ethereal quill, frost against phantom script. Each hero confronted a fragment of doubt, banishing it with flame, blade, and song. At the final strike, Aldric yoked the mapman's empty palm to the dais. The remaining runes flared, the archways convulsed, and a chorus of 10 echoing chords rang out. The Gate of Echoes dissolved in prisms of light, revealing a veiled stair descending into living mist. Epilogue, The Veil Beyond. They stood at the threshold once more, behind them, elsewhere's fractured wonders, before them, the veil beyond, a corridor of shifting shadows and half-forgotten dreams. Each hero felt the weight and wonder of what they had reclaimed, memory, identity, machine and myth fused. Aldric turned to face his companions, their faces lit by soft phosphor glow. His voice trembled with hard-won hope. We have rewritten the lost echoes. Now we cross into the final unknown. Together. They clasped hands, warrior, sentinel, witch, rune lord, minstrel, scholar, machine, and living map. Step by step, they descended, as one heart, one memory, into the dawn of a new age.